And I went down, and I opened my eyes in my mask in the darkness with my flashlight, and I saw, like right in front of me, this huge eyeball. Like about the size, I don't know, of a saucer.
You may never get to know the kind of terror that hides deep beneath the waters until you watch this video till the end.
But in the vast oceans beneath us, there could be all kinds of advanced civilizations.
Brace up for a discovery that shocked the world as Joe Rogan reveals what the Soviets saw underwater. Unexplored. Through research, science has made us understand that there is more to our world than what we see right now, or all that we could possibly even see. To put that better, we can say that the part of the universe where we live is just like the middle layer of a sandwich. There is so much going on over our heads, and there is even much more happening beneath us. We know that the world does not revolve around us, and this understanding has birthed several questions in the heart of many. However, this quest for answers have birthed something more, and it is the reason scientists fly into space and plunge into the seas with special technologies that are designed to reach great depths. However, this is where they fall short. They seem to focus more on the outer space in search of answers than they actually explore the aquatic world beneath us.
We were talking about space, about how we know more about space than we do about the ocean, which is true.
Strange as it may seem, about 2/3 of the Earth is covered with water, and the oceans hold over 95% of that volume. But sadly, only about 10% of Earth's water has been explored by scientists. Now that sounds more like what you would call the tip of an iceberg, right? I mean, you can imagine what could be lurking in the deepest and darkest parts of the oceans. The beautiful, the terrific, and the ones that are somewhere in between. Well, thinking about it, we really cannot blame anyone for not fully exploring the depths of waters anyway. I mean, humans are designed to survive on the surface of the Earth, and going out of their comfort zone into the deep waters could be a dangerous adventure. No doubt, some have tried to see beyond what lies on the surface, but the truth remains that most of these curious explorers usually do not get to see their research till the end. But on the flip side, this seems to be an advantage for some other beings and creatures because they can easily hide away in the deepest parts of the ocean where they are sure humans would never be able to reach. Very smart move if you ask me. Now, when I say beings and creatures, I do not mean weird or dangerous animals that we may never have seen in our own part of the Earth, nor do I mean those mind-boggling plants that exist thousands and thousands of feet below the water surface. While we cannot ignore the fact that these things exist at great depths and they add life and beauty to the waters around us, I think we should also consider the possibility of extraterrestrial or paranormal beings hiding out at those depths too. Yeah, I know that sounds like an extreme hypothesis, but you would be shocked that it is not far from the truth. In fact, it gets even more shocking because the deepest parts of the oceans could be holding certain technologies that are still strange to man. I'm talking about technologies with insane speed that the minds of human scientists have not captured yet. And this brings us to one of the terrifying discoveries which was made by the Soviet Army in Russia: submarine UFOs. In what does not seem much like an adventure, the Russian Navy launched a fully weaponized nuclear submarine into the depths of the ocean. At the start of their journey, it would have seemed like one of their usual military assignments, and they wouldn't expect anything out of the ordinary. However, a surprise was waiting for them, a slightly unpleasant one. At a depth of about 260 meters, the submarine detected some strange objects moving towards them at an extraordinary speed. The speed of these objects was exactly what gave the Russian army a sense of impending danger because it was just out of the ordinary. After a closer look, the captain discovered that they were 6 disc-like objects moving towards the submarine in a formation, like they were being controlled by something that is out of this world. The sighting immediately raised the tension in the submarine, and the Soviets could not put any meaning to what was heading towards them. But things got even more intense when the captain found out that the objects may be mirroring their submarine. According to the written report, the captain ordered the submarine to slow down a bit, and at exactly the same moment, the strange objects also did the same. Now, this is the part where everyone in the submarine would start making a silent prayer in their hearts. However, when you think about it, you may infer that the strange disc-like objects were occupied by some certain beings who belong to another world, more like aliens. And the fact they were mirroring the submarine could mean that they were fascinated by it, just like the Soviets were dazed by them. So they may not have meant any harm, you'll never know. Nevertheless, the possible admiration did not last for too long as the foreign bodies went back to their insane speed as they headed towards the submarine. Now it would be very obvious that those objects were most definitely being controlled from somewhere. At that point, when they picked up their extraordinary speed, the captain was sure that they could be in danger. So they were able to make it to the surface before a collision happened, but they were still curious about what they encountered. And when they looked through their periscope, they saw that the 6 objects also came out of the water and disappeared into the sky at a mind-boggling speed. Now, the experience wouldn't have been regarded as something that is out of this world. But one thing that turned the heads of these Soviets was the alarming speed at which the objects moved. No doubt the speed could only mean that the technology belonged to some aliens or some beings that are way beyond our imagination. However, no one would really believe or accept that there were aliens beneath the deep waters. In fact, at the time, the Russian government did not think that aliens were a thing, and they never wanted the information to filter out to the public. They did not need the possible uproar that may come with it, so they hushed the Navy guys, kept the encounter a secret, and they held on to their belief that aliens were just fragments of imagination. Well, the belief would work for them until a bigger and scarier encounter happened under a lake in Russia, claiming lives this time. Let's take a dive into Lake Baikal as we see the most terrifying discovery, which was made by some Soviets who dared to swim to the hidden depths of the ice-cold lake, where no one ever thinks of going. Though the Russian government did their best to also hush those who were left after the encounter, the story could not be hidden for too long. Lake Baikal. One of the places where you would never imagine that you could find any form of life is in the depths of a Russian lake called Lake Baikal. In a way, this would be shocking because the lake possesses several amazing features that make it stand out among others. However, it is majorly known to be icy and cold all year round, and this is why it would make sense if no living thing exists in the lake. Located in southern Siberia, Lake Baikal is a rift lake which has the perfect combination of a great depth and an eye-popping width. It is a body of fresh water which covers a whooping space of over 30,000 square kilometers, and this makes it even larger than some countries in the world. Yep, just imagine a lake that is bigger than the whole of Belgium. That's huge, right? Due to the incredible surface area, Lake Baikal is considered the 7th largest lake in the world. However, it has another great advantage which puts it above other large lakes in the world, and this is its mind-blowing depth. With a depth of over 5,000 feet, Lake Baikal remains the deepest lake in the world, and this depth also allows it to hold over 20 million cubic kilometers of water. Now that's magnificent, isn't it? With its amazing depth and width, scientists have discovered that Lake Baikal holds over 20% of the world's freshwater, and this is why the lake is regarded as the largest freshwater lake by volume. While all these are good features that have made the lake stand out among others, Lake Baikal is a no-go zone for most people because of its freezing temperature, which gets even more chilly as you descend to the depth. Though the water temperature varies with location and time of the year, its temperature never reaches a bearable mark. As expected, the lake is usually at its coldest during winter, and the temperature may drop to as low as -50 degrees. The water temperature gets so chilly that the water begins to turn into ice, and this ice is sometimes as thick as 6 feet, making it possible for some risk takers to travel over it with cars. I guess we should add that this act is not acceptable and could be highly dangerous, but it only gives context to how hard and thick the ice gets. During summer, the sun melts the ice and the temperature of the lake rises, but the average temperature remains about 1.5 degrees, and that's still too cold for comfort if you ask me. Also, as the ice melts during the summer, the lakes begin to experience a kind of cold, stormy weather, and this sometimes results in high waves. So these extreme conditions are the reasons you are not likely to find any major human habitat close to the lake. But since humans have to run as far as they can from this extremely cold lake, other creatures and beings may have found solace and peace at its depths. Holding a large volume of water, which is more than a combination of all of the North American Great Lakes, Lake Baikal is the home of thousands and thousands of animal and plant species that do not seem to mind the cold. Or let's say that they were specially made for the freezing cold. Now here's another fun fact. Lake Baikal is as old as 30 million years, and this makes it one of the oldest lakes in the world. But this also means that the lake has hosted several beings and creatures that we may not even be able to imagine in our lifetime. In fact, they probably still host some of these terrifying beings, and the Soviets were convinced that they encountered some of them. Aliens underwater.
Yeah. That there's some sort of alien base underwater or some meeting place, or that's where they hide.
Just as Joe Rogan inferred, there may be aliens chilling beneath the surface of the waters somewhere around you. I mean, since most humans think that the depths of the great waters are no-go areas, the aliens may have found safety at these depths, glad that no humans would come near them. But the ones under Lake Baikal were probably wrong. Sometime in 2009, rumors started flying around that some classified documents from the Soviet era have been found, and they seem to contain the detailed information of a paranormal encounter that happened beneath Lake Baikal in 1982, 10 years before the end of the Soviet era. Typical of the Soviet government, they kept the encounter as a top secret as they still held on to their belief that the alien thingy is just crazy propaganda that the people of Russia did not need to see as true. However, they could not hold the secret for too long, and the cat was let out of the bag. According to the Soviet documents, which were discovered decades after the incident, certain men of the Russian Navy went on a diving training at Lake Baikal, and none of them would have thought that their diving lessons would open the doors to another world of the unknown. They all grabbed their gears and jumped into the ice-cold lake, and for the first 100 feet and some hundreds more, they seemed to be doing okay. However, things took a new turn when they sighted some terrifying humanoid figures which they could not explain. The creatures were dressed in shiny silver suits which looked nothing like our diving suit. Now, the naval officers were even shocked to their bones when they looked closely and saw that these creatures were diving at that depth without any diving apparatus. No oxygen tank, no swimsuit or scuba gears. They human-like creatures were just moving at that depth like it wasn't a big deal. I mean, that was how best to explain that they weren't humans, but something unexplainably more powerful. Well, these humanoid creatures were later named the Lake Baikal swimmers by the naval officers. But this would be after a second encounter because they all fled for their lives and rose back to the surface as soon as they saw the terrifying beings. When the naval officers got back to the surface, they narrated their ordeal to the captain, and they thought that they were done with the depths of that lake forever. But guess what? It was just the beginning of their troubles. Before they could even think of celebrating their safety from a near-death experience, the captain chose 7 of the strongest and bravest men to go back into the depths of Lake Baikal, not to train this time, but to capture one of the creatures which they claimed they had found. You bet that would have seemed like a reasonable idea to the captain, but he soon realized that the idea was meant to be trashed and not executed. Having no choice but to obey their captain, as the laws of the military say, the 7 officials went back to the depths of Lake Baikal, and they started their search and hunt for these paranormal creatures. After hours of descending into the depths, they eventually found these creatures, standing at a height of about 9 feet. No doubt the creatures dwarfed all of them, but they were still all about catching one of them as a specimen, probably. They must have thought that the task would be as easy as it is when you want to catch a giant fish or other water animals, so they brought out their equipment and tried to trap one of these creatures. However, this was when they realized that the creatures were aliens, because they seemed to have a kind of technology which they could not comprehend. As soon as they sensed the impending danger, the creatures started waving a metallic device which created a kind of disturbance in the waters around the naval officers. Before they could understand what was about to descend on them, and probably prepare for impact if they could, they were already caught up in the magnetic waves which suddenly propelled them to the surface of the lake. And here is where things get a little gloomy. Due to the sudden and shocking rise to the surface of the water from thousands of feet below sea level, all the divers suffered from decompression issues, and they all began to gasp for air as soon as they reached the surface. Though the medical team were there to help, 3 of them could not make it as they took their last breaths before they could even get treated. The remaining 4 who survived were badly injured, and they had to go through several treatments to fully recover from the impact of the encounter. Though this terrifying event happened in the early 1980s, the Russian government kept it a secret from the public, and they only said that 4 men who survived were in so much distress that they could not talk so much about what they saw. But of course, the fact remains that the government was only trying to keep the truth about aliens away from her people. Why Lake Baikal? Okay, come to think of it, if the Soviet government had told the people that some aliens were found underwater, would they have sounded reasonable? I think they might have sounded like they were out of their minds and they were only trying to mislead the people. First, the probability of aliens existing was not widely accepted at the time, and even if they did, we believed, or hoped, they stayed out there in space and not here with us. I mean, that's how the movies paint them, right? The rockets, the spaceship, and all sorts. But these aliens seem to be smarter than we could ever imagine. While humans are busy focusing on outer space in search of aliens, these guys have found their way into the midst of us. So while we are busy walking around and living our lives in oblivion, they are probably peeping from the depths of the waters, looking at how we keep existing on their roofs without any clue of what's happening beneath us. It's just so scary and fascinating at the same time. And to show how very smart these paranormal creatures that were seen by the Soviets are, they did not just choose a river or lake as their home, well, maybe we call it a lounging area. They actually chose a place like Lake Baikal, where they are sure that you may never dream of diving into. And even if anyone dives into the lake, they have the great depth and width of Lake Baikal to their advantage. At that depth and size, the chances that a human will ever bump into them is actually once in a lifetime, and that only chance already happened during the Soviet era. So while scientists were still busy exploring outer space, hoping that they would find an alien to take home, the aliens they sought were literally chilling in the depths of an ice-cold lake. I mean, we could really say that the aliens won that round, right? However, as we stand in awe of the incredible smartness and wisdom of these paranormal creatures, I think the awesomeness also raises a lot of questions. How are aliens so immune to the extreme cold of Lake Baikal and humans are not? How are they able to survive at that depth without any oxygen tank or special diving apparatus like the human divers? And most importantly, why do they seem to have more advanced technologies that we do not seem to know of? Oh, I guess we should also find answers to the questions that have lingered for so long. The question about the friendliness or hostility of these aliens. I mean, the Soviets' encounter also ended in a catastrophe, and we can't seem to tell if the aliens only responded to the fact that the Soviets tried to catch one of them, or are they generally dangerous themselves? I'm not sure we could ever get answers to these questions, but it sure calls for some level of thinking and probably more research. What do you think about this video, and what are your thoughts about aliens? Do you think the migration of aliens from outer space to our world could mean danger in the nearest future? We would love to have a conversation with you in the comments section, so let us have your thoughts. If you also have a question about this thought-provoking topic, you can ask us in the comments section as well.